gap is even more clear, right? Like Redmi Note 3 has 28% of the page views. It's almost double the second most popular device, and that is just one variant. That's the 32 GB variant. You see number 5 here is actually the 16 GB variant. So it's just a really, really phenomenally popular device. So today we're here to talk about Redmi 3S. Redmi 3S is really kind of the, the sort of successor to Redmi Note 3 in a 5-inch form. So, first I want to talk about design. If you've seen Redmi Note 3, Redmi 3S will look very, very familiar. Whoa. I don't know what that is. If you see Redmi Note 3, Redmi 3S will be very familiar. You have the same kind of curved edges. You have the same metal body, fingerprint sensor, with a nice metallic rim. The thing here is that at 10,000 rupees, which is where Redmi Note 3 sells, there are, some metal devices. At 7,000 rupees, where the Redmi 3S retails, is nothing. This is a premium phone in a segment where everything is full of plastic. And if we're talking about, making a phone that people are proud of, this is something that if you spend 7,000 bucks, it's hard to be proud of the phone that you have. But when you pick this up, you'll see it doesn't seem like a phone that's 7,000 rupees. And so we have some of the devices here. This is the gold version, which is my favorite. But we have all 3 variants on sale right now. There's the gold, there's the dark gray with the black front, and then the silver with the white front. But by far the best thing about this phone is the battery life. For those of you who have used it or have read about it, this is the most amazing thing. I think, again, in this segment, there's a lot of competitors. There are a lot of devices from every company here, and everybody tries to differentiate themselves with some sort of tactic. And I think some of those things are more useful than others. And in my opinion, nothing is more useful than battery life. It's the only thing that you can pack a ton of battery and no one's going to be like, oh, this is excessive, right? At some point, it's too much RAM, but I don't think there's too much battery. And this is the best battery life on any phone we've ever shipped. It has a huge 4,100 milliamp hour battery. This is actually bigger than the battery that was in Redmi Note 3, even though the device is half an inch smaller. And it really is the first phone we think can get 2 days worth of battery life. It also has a HD display. Redmi Note 3 had a 1080p display. So because the resolution is lower, you end up getting better battery life. We use the same battery technology that we used in Mi 4i. This is the super dense battery. It's the highest density battery on the market. If you look at the sort of split of the phone, you can see here that the battery is like it's more than half the phone is battery. So really, the remarkable amount of engineering in this phone went into shrinking everything else. And if you compare this battery to the battery that's in Redmi Note 3, they're basically the same size. So it's everything else that we shrunk down. And so, all of the hard work here went into making a phone with phenomenal battery. It is 2 times the battery that we shipped in the previous generation Redmi 2. And this is like less than a year ago. We almost doubled the battery. And despite that, it's still 10% thinner. So, we've doubled the size of battery, but the device is still thinner, and it's only 11 grams heavier. And that's despite the fact that it is metal. Redmi 2 Prime, that was a plastic device. And Redmi 3S is metal. We doubled the battery size, added metal. It's still thinner, and it only weighs 11 grams more. So it's really a remarkable engineering that went in here. So what does this all mean in practice? So these screenshots came from our beta testers. They tend to be kind of like me, like the more sort of nerdy folks. So this came from one of our testers in Delhi. I don't know if you can actually see the stats here, but he had 3 days of battery life. And it's not like this phone was sitting in a closet, right? Like he had mobile network on the entire time, Wi-Fi was on half the time, and he got 3 days of battery. This one, again, is one of my favorites. Almost 2 days of battery. He has hotspot on, and Wi-Fi and mobile network were on the entire time. I posted this screenshot on Twitter yesterday. it's, you know, most phones, if you get a day's worth of battery life, that's pretty good. Again, I don't know if you can read this, but this guy had 15 hours of screen on time. There's no real perfect battery metric, but you know, this is probably one of the closer ones, which is really like how long can the screen be on? And I think many phones would be lucky to get this kind of battery life. And this guy, I think when we met him in Delhi, he said he watched 3 movies back to back and played games. So 15 hours of screen on time. In a lot of phones, you're lucky if you get 7 hours. And that's where the huge battery, 5-inch display, and 720p screen really come in practical use. So again, that's the awesome thing, 2-day battery life. So we picked a slogan that kind of went with all this, which is power at last. So quickly talk about some of the other features. I want to talk about the processor. Manu mentioned the, you know, our focus on reducing the gap between our China release dates and our India release dates. But it's not just, you know, bringing our own products here. We're also bringing new technology to India first. When we launched Redmi Note 3 in March, it was the first Snapdragon 650 device available in India. It was the first by a few months. It was also, you know, even in America, it was difficult to get. This was the best place to buy a Snapdragon 650 device. I think we're accustomed to having, you know, some relative or friend who's traveling abroad and having them bring electronics here. And, you know, this is the opposite case. I had people telling me, hey, I'm going to go to America. I need to bring a Redmi Note 3 there. Can you help me get an FCO? And that's really what we tried to do, is bring new technology to India first. It was the same thing with Mi 5. We were the first to launch Snapdragon 820 here when we launched it in March. Again, first by, I think, a few months. And with Redmi 3S, it's no different. We're the first to launch Snapdragon 430. So real quick, Snapdragon 430 is an octa-core CPU. It has a very similar setup to what's in Snapdragon 616. I'm not going to go into all the details. But if you look at the performance is actually, I mean, it is in its class, it's the best CPU. Even though the clock speed is a little bit lower than Snapdragon 616, because thermal performance on this SoC is better, it actually is about the same or better in terms of sustained performance. And relative to some of the other devices, it's not close. And if you look at GPU, it's the same thing. This Snapdragon 430 has the newer generation of Qualcomm's GPUs, the Adreno 505. And when we compare it to the other devices, this is against the G4 Plus. This is, again, where the 1080p screen versus 720p screen really helps you in practical usage. Your real-world gaming performance is better than Moto G4 Plus, and that device is almost twice the price. The devices that are around the cost of Redmi 3S, sometimes the GPUs are so bad in those phones that they can't even run this benchmark. And that's because, you know, a lot of the devices here sort of cut corners, and GPU is one of the main things that they cut corners on. But like I said, if you're focused on the 2 years of the device, you know, in 2 years you'll notice lagging and stuttering, and that is not, you know, that is not what we want to focus on. Another thing that's very important is thermal performance. This, again, is compared to what's in the Moto G4 Plus. It's almost a 5-degree difference in temperature, and this is after 25 minutes of asphalt 8. So camera. So, you know, camera is one of the things that, you know, Redmi devices have always been really great at. When Redmi 1S launched, this is the thing that kind of blew everyone's mind, was how great the camera was, even though it was a 6,000 rupee phone. Redmi 3S is no different. The camera is awesome. It's a 13 megapixel phase detection autofocus camera, which is super fast focus, has f2.0 aperture. You know, again, the sort of goal here is to put technology that makes it easy for you to trust your phone, for you to be able to, you know, be confident that when you pull it out, you'll get a good image.